right, Malpal, it is time to transition away from Texas high school football for just a bit. We'll be back in the back half of the show. But for now, on last Thursday, you guys went through and did some college football burning questions for the four Texas teams. Well, yes, four Texas teams that were in
4 FBS and then one
and
FCS,
then one FCS, that were in their respected conference championships. And so now we go to Malpal.
All right, we'll go ahead and throw that first question up there if I can get it. It's about UTSA. What lessons do you take from last week's UTSA loss to North Texas? Now, if you guys don't remember what happened 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago,
UTSA had a big loss to North Texas. I don't remember what that final score was, but yeah, it was
45 to 23, and most of those were garbage times.
Right.
For UTSA.
Yes, exactly. So honestly, I think we can kind of answer this question now. With UTSA, you can take that big loss to North Texas, and you can transfer that energy over to this big Conference USA championship game that you just had with Western Kentucky, and that's pretty much exactly what they did. UTSA ended up beating Western Kentucky for the second time this year, 49-41. Now, this game was honestly super aggressive. I loved watching this game too. I think this game kind of went exactly as their first meeting with Western Kentucky went, and it was a great game. UTSA jumped out early. I think Western Kentucky ended up scoring first. UTSA answered very quickly, but then right after that, UTSA just came up with some big stops and was able to grab that big lead. I think they were up 42-20 over Western Kentucky first. And really, that ended up leaving Western Kentucky kind of playing catch-up. And we've seen throughout the year, I don't know how much you guys have followed Western Kentucky, but they're not very good at playing catch-up. If they're down big like that, they kind of freak out in a sense. Now, they almost did come back against UTSA. I think like you said, the final score was 49-41. So they ended up coming back just a little bit on the last play of the game. Bailey Zappi ended up throwing a pick, and that ended the game for UTSA and Western Kentucky. So UTSA is our Conference USA champions.
And yeah, that's the big thing Western Kentucky was no joke, and we knew that going into the year, and it's really hard to beat a good team twice. Not to mention that first meeting was at the Hilltop at a night game. That's if you speak Conference USA like we do, that's a very difficult environment to play in. So they go out and get that. To do it again, you have home field advantage this time, which is great.
And I think that was like their third largest crowd in UTSA history.
It was
too. So it was packed in the Alamo Dome.
Yeah, to say what Jeff Traylor has done for this UTSA program, still a pretty infant program in the scope of college football. This is their 8th season, I want to say. And you go out there, you bring in a new head coach, and he turned that program around. It was in really bad shape. And now you know that this is the type of momentum that then you start to improve your facilities. You start to bring in those recruits. People see this as, why go play at a larger school where we're not going to win when I can go win conference championships at in the Conference USA level? And obviously then they're going to be moving on to the AAC. And so it's one of those things. This is such a big momentum builder for what this UTSA team was to do. And so to answer the question, yes, do you want to go undefeated and beat North Texas?
Yes.
Of course you do. In the scope of things, is dropping one to a barely bowl eligible North Texas team at the last game of the season to then go on and win your conference championships. Undefeated is great. Whatever.
Right, and kind of speaking on that game, that Western Kentucky offense is absolutely deadly.
Oh, absolutely.
Bailey Zappi, and now if you guys don't know,
Houston Baptist can tell you.
Right. So that Western Kentucky team, that whole coaching staff, including Bailey Zappi, their quarterback, was basically picked up from Houston Baptist and moved over to Western Kentucky. Now, Bailey's, they lead, I think they're the number one team in the FBS for passing offense. They are deadly. Bailey Zappi's got he's got 5,500 passing yards on the year, 56 touchdowns. So the fact that UTSA was able to come up with big stops and get ahead on this Western Kentucky offense, huge win for the Roadrunners. And like you said, this is a huge momentum shift for years to come. I think they can start competing with teams down in that San Antonio area, like Texas and stuff like that, pulling recruits. it's a huge win for them, I think, on and off the field.
Absolutely. It no doubt is, and it's exactly what you want to do before you start going through different conference and everything. And, hey, Jeff Traylor has now laid the foundation for Texas high school football coaches. Joey McGuire is going to try and do his same thing. Both those guys start popping off like this. The scope of college football in Texas, it begins, there's a narrative being written that really begins to change this. So Jeff Traylor is a fundamental key into doing it, and he went out there and he turned this UTSA program around, and looks like he's sticking around.
Absolutely. We'll go ahead and move on to our next question. This is the Big 12 championship. If Baylor is to win the Big 12 title, which of course they did, what must be different from its first meeting with Oklahoma State? Now, just to recap, Baylor did defeat Oklahoma State this weekend 21-16 to claim the Big 12 championship title for this season. Now, I think the main thing that they had to do different from their first meeting with Oklahoma State was they had to step it up on that defense. And that's exactly what they did. Now, to start off, Baylor did start their freshman quarterback, Blake Shapen, over Gary Bohannon. And to start off with that offense, they actually looked pretty great. One thing that I did mention last week is that the first meeting, they got lucky and they got to see a bad Spencer Sanders. He threw he threw 3 interceptions last game, but the thing was they couldn't take advantage of that. They couldn't capitalize on those interceptions, which really hurt them because they were put into good field position. They just couldn't capitalize on them. Now, this meeting, it was a little bit different. Spencer Sanders, again, they caught a bad Spencer Sanders. He threw 4 interceptions this game, and of course, Baylor was able to take advantage of that. They were able to score off of 2 of those interceptions, so that was one thing that they obviously did a lot better than last. And of course, going back to that Baylor defense, they were able to come up with some big stops, in the end zone to control most of that game. I think the stat, Oklahoma State ran 17 plays, and inside Baylor's, I think, 10-yard line, and they were only able to score 7 points off of that. So that Baylor defense in the red zone was absolutely deadly. And kind of speaking to that, I don't know if you saw the last play of that game or the last drive of that game. It was absolutely brutal if you're an Oklahoma State fan. But just to recap, so about a minute left in the game, Oklahoma State drives down to Baylor's 2-yard line. Of course, it's 1st and 10. They got 4 tries to get it into the end zone to not only tie up the game, but to win the game. And of course, that would probably put them into the college football playoff. They were unable to do so. 4 different tries. That red zone defense of Baylor just absolutely demolished that offense in that time and came up with a big stop. And that led Baylor to a Big 12 title for the first time in quite a bit.
Yeah, it's been a while, and that's the thing. There's the old adage in football and sports in general: defense wins championships. And
you are absolutely right.
Did that, and you hit the nail on the head. I remember sitting there after the Baylor Oklahoma State game and saying, "How in the world does an opposing quarterback throw 4 interceptions and you lose a game?"
Right. That's unacceptable. You can't do that.
You can't.
It's just I look at it like this: if your quarterback on the opposing side is going to basically hand you the game, because that's what he's doing. If you're throwing that many picks, if you're having that many turnovers,
it's literally handing
you the game. Here's the win, and you can't do anything with it.
Right.
Something has got to change.
And the fact that they were able to do that on the biggest stage is what you have to do. And you said it too. Shout out to Blake Shapen. Obviously, we thought that when Gary Bohannon wasn't going to play in this game, that there was a good chance that Baylor really didn't stand a chance. Because he played in the last game, and they still couldn't get it done. He went 23 for 28, 180 yards passing, and 3 touchdowns. And, I mean, that's spectacular from your next man up philosophy there. But, it was defense. Defense wins championships. This game is, if any coach ever wants to show people that, go ahead and put on that last play of the whole little series, the last first down series.
You need to show up, put up. You need to put up that ending frame of that guy who's just reaching for the end zone. That's just one. I swear, like 1 inches yard short of the goal line. Yeah. That's what you got to throw up
and
there.
And that's all it takes is 1 yard. And the fact they capitalized on their mistakes, and then the defense never quit playing.
Yes.
So there you go. Congratulations to Baylor. And man, what a deal that athletic department has had in the checks notes past like 8 months.
Yeah, seriously, you got a freaking national title for the men's basketball team, and the women's, I'm not sure. I think they made it to the Final Four.
They fell just short, but I mean they're perennial powerhouse down there. So
that athletic department is just fantastic over there. Shout out to them for sure. All right, we'll move on to our next question. Over under 150.5 rushing yards for Cincinnati. I kind of fell victim to this. I definitely took the under for this because I'll show you why, or I'll tell you why. So the last time Cincinnati faced a great rush defense was back when they played Notre Dame. I think the third game of the season, they ended up beating Notre Dame. And they held him to under 100 rushing yards. And as you know, Houston's got a great rushing defense. And I had it on here what they were ranked, but they're in I believe they're in the top 20 in the FBS. So just going off of that, I was like, all right.
Oh, yeah, that seems like it could.
I'm taking the
work.
Under on this. No.
And then Jerome Ford happened.
Absolutely not. Yeah, it was,
that guy alone went 18 carries for 187 yards. He was averaging 10 yards per carry. And then he looked into the camera and he said, "This one's for you, Malpel." Yeah. That's exactly what happened.
He said, "I'm going to prove you wrong on this one." Yeah. But the final score to this game, this was the AAC championship. Cincinnati defeated Houston 35-20. And I'm going to say it. I think this score does not indicate what this game actually looked like. Cincinnati just had a total domination over this Houston team. They looked fantastic on offense as well as defense. They were so balanced on offense, which I think really hurt this Houston defense. You know, as great as your rush defense is, if you're balanced on offense where you can sling it as much as you can run it, there's not much that you can do to stop a team like that. So I just think they had full control of this game. And I really think that if you're looking at it, I think Cincinnati just had a lot more to play for than Houston. Houston's already got one loss. They lost at the beginning of the season to Texas Tech. Of course, they're already bowl eligible. Yeah, they were playing for a conference championship, but if you're Cincinnati, you're playing for a spot in the college football playoff, the first G5 team to make it into the playoffs. And I think there was just more riding on it for Cincinnati, and it really showed.
Yeah, there was never a doubt that Houston was going to show up to this game, and they were going to get the best Cincinnati team possible. There was never a doubt about that. I'm going to give a shout out to Clayton Tune. I mean, 250 yards of passing. He went out there, and he was able. Now, quite a bit of those were garbage time, but you kind of do that. The other thing that I feel like deserves a little bit of credit there, and this is kind of a surprising stat, but Cincinnati went 0-8 on third down conversions.
Really?
So Houston's defense did a pretty decent job of holding them to a certain extent. It was more of the long breakaway plays it's great to be able to hold them, but if you're going to let Jerome Ford throw up 187 yards of rushing on you single-handedly, and then there was more after that, to get up to 210 as a team, it's like he carried the team on the back.
Right, and Houston didn't have a bad game. I don't think Clayton Tune had a horrible game. They just were able to put a ton of pressure on Clayton Tune, and which ultimately resulted in a pretty big dub for this Cincinnati team. All right, we'll move on to our last question of the week. A little FCS action. What is the key matchup for Prairie View A&M to win its first SWAC title since 2009? Now, if you don't know much about these two teams, I guess I'll go ahead and tell you what the final score to this was. Prairie View A&M played Jackson State for the SWAC championship this weekend. Jackson State defeated Prairie View A&M 27-10. And if you guys don't know, Deion Sanders is the head coach of Jackson State. So if that name sounds familiar, that is why. Now, I think we talked about this past week the main matchup. Now, this Prairie View A&M team is good. I think they went 7-4 on the year. Definitely 7-5.
Well, yeah, with this loss.
Right, 7-5 with this loss. They've taken it a step, and I must mention that one of those losses was to Texas A&M. So that.
Go ahead and ride that one
I don't know if you really count that one much, but this team is really from where they have been in the past, they've really stepped it up. And I think playing for a title like this is really a testament to how much they have stepped it up over the past couple of years. And I think that to answer this question, this was the toughest defense that Prairie View A&M has faced all season. That's what Tepper had said, and I think this game was really just a testament to that. Now, Jawan Pass, Prairie View A&M starting quarterback, didn't have a bad game. He had 16 touchdowns on the year. He's a great quarterback. Jackson State's defense was just stellar. They were just, I think the halftime score was, I think Jackson State was only leading 13-10 at halftime. And if you see, the final score was 27-10. So Jackson State held Prairie View A&M could not do anything that second half. Yeah, absolutely nothing.
They came out in that second half, and it was punt after punt after punt. They couldn't get anything going offensively. And then from a Jackson State perspective, they have a lot of versatility on offense, and then they had the guy in Peyton Pickett that was able to go over 100 yards on rushing. And so when it gets to that, the defense, you have a little bit of trouble stopping the run game from Jackson State, and then you look at it of just not getting anything to go offensively. They looked good in the first half. It looked like, okay, here we go. It can be a competitive game. Getting shut out in the second, just that hurts. And
they also Jackson State's defense also forced 5 turnovers from Prairie View A&M. So at that
That'll
point,
do it.
And like we were kind of talking about during that Baylor game in Oklahoma State, they were able to capitalize on some of those turnovers and get good field position, and it killed them. But hey, a great testament to Prairie View A&M's season. Congrats to them. They're really stepping it up with that program, and yeah, it's exciting to see what they're going to be able to do in these next coming seasons.
Thanks so much for watching that video. If you would like more and to be notified when they come out, go ahead and click that subscribe button right down there. You can also watch Texas Football Today every day live at noon on TexasFootball.com, Facebook, Twitch, and right here on YouTube. For more of the best coverage of Texas football in the Lone Star State, go to TexasFootball.com/subscribe.